This is Learn Kotlin with me, where I'm learning Kotlin programming language through exercises on accessism. As a bonus point, I'm documenting all the learnings in these videos. Today we are using an IDE, VS Code, because we will be working with some APIs, so good to have some backup support. I'm using IntelliJ IDEA, had these guys know a thing or two about Kotlin. Gigasecond has a simple task. Given a moment of time I presume, determine the moment that would be after a gigasecond has passed. A gigasecond is a billion seconds, so 10 to the power of 9. Did you know that even though nowadays both British and American English consider a billion to be 10 to the power of 9, it used to be the case that a billion for Brits meant 10 to the power of 12. Negotiation must have been hard. Tests. We always start with tests. So it seems like gigasecond is a class being instantiated with a local date. In the assert statement, we compare what seems to be the instance property date to a local date time. So sometimes the class is instantiated with a local date time. Where do these date classes come from? They are direct imports from Java. Kotlin is highly praised for its interoperability with Java, meaning you don't have to throw away all the Java code you've written. You can start writing Kotlin in your Java app, or you can write some Java in your Kotlin. Like, the world is full of opportunities. Usually with most exercises, I do several revisions. There's some back and forth with the mentors. I do stupid things. They remind me not to do stupid things. But with this code, I had to do some head scratching, and I didn't have a first bad solution. As if there's only one solution and you can either get it or not. There might be more solutions. I really don't know. Let's start with what we know. We know it's a class, the gigasecond. We've created the file. It seems like we need to have two constructors, one that accepts a local date and another local date time. Now, here's the catch. To add a delta of a billion seconds to a moment, we need to know the moment as a date time. I assume that the date would have the time set to midnight, and if you look at tests, that assumption seems to be correct. Back to constructors. So a class in Kotlin can have a primary constructor and one or more secondary constructors. The primary constructor is part of the class header. It goes after the class name and optional type parameters. You can use the constructor keyword or omit it if you don't use any annotations or visibility modifiers, and make it look like a weird function/class definition. I'm still undecided if I like it or not. I'm kind of glad I'm making these videos, because usually I just scan the code in the docs and ignore most of the written text until I have a problem. So let's make the primary constructor accept a local date time. The secondary constructor we have to prefix with constructor keyword. If the class has a primary constructor, each secondary constructor needs to delegate to the primary constructor, either directly or indirectly through another secondary constructor. Delegation to another constructor of the same class is done using this keyword. And in this case, our constructor will accept a local date. So I need to instantiate the class with a date time given a date. Looking through the Java 90s looking docs, we scanned the API of local date to find anything suitable. You can of course ask Google and then pick up the answer from Stack Overflow, but hey, people put in effort to write these docs. You can spend an extra minute scrolling through them. We have at time where we could pass our midnight and construct a local date time, but even better, you can use add start of date to get the midnight date time. So we do colon this current date dot add start of date. Now whatever we pass, a date or a date time, we will express this as a date time. This is why we want the primary constructor to be initialized with date time and not date. Otherwise, for date times, we would lose the information about time when expressing it as a date. Last piece of the puzzle is that date property. Properties in Kotlin classes can be declared either as mutable using the var keyword or as read-only using the val keyword. We know that. Ours is immutable, so let's make it a val. Call it date, type local datetime. So in Java, you would have a getter and a setter, or just a getter as in this case, aka read-only property. In Kotlin, getters and setters are optional. For read-only properties, you declare your property with val, as we did, and don't declare a setter. We need to initialize the value with something. That's where we can add the billion seconds. So scanning the docs for local datetime, we're looking for return type to be local datetime, and we have some minus hours, minus. Okay, we've got the plus, and we need the plus seconds. we will add 1 billion seconds to this date using this method. And if we don't declare an explicit getter, Kotlin will use the default one. Now, 1 billion doesn't fit into an int because it's only 32 bits, so we must mark the value explicitly as long with an L suffix. One last bit is to extract the magic number into some sort of constant. I made it a private read-only property, private val gigasecond. For readability, you can use underscores, similar to what you can do in the recent versions of Python. And at the very end, let's unignore the test and run them. Since I know what I'm doing, they're going to be green. So this is the final class. Just remember that classes in Kotlin have an optional primary constructor, one or more secondary constructors, and that properties, getters, and setters will look different from what you're used in Java. So you'll have to check the docs a couple of times until you get used to it. I definitely did. Feel free to like, subscribe, leave me feedback in the comments, and see you next time.